Welcome everybody to Dynamite After Dark. I am your host Zanman Shane Sabuni, along with my good buddy Jeff. And
Hi.
Jeff, for the second straight week, we had an empty arena Dynamite. And after a spectacular show last week, I thought this one kind of struggled to get going.
Well, to be honest, I think a lot of it was the lack of wrestlers ringside, and we talked about it last night. There's quarantines going on, there's laws going on, so they can't have that many people within a certain gathering type thing. And I think, to be honest, I think the lack of wrestlers ringside actually hurt this one. I still enjoyed the show. I thought the matches were amazing, but there was a severe lack of energy.
There was a lot of less stuff going on. I don't know if that's even a word, but I really enjoyed what we were able to see of the Kenny Omega versus Sammy Guevara match.
Right.
But I think the show also suffered from, this is the first Dynamite they've done where they haven't the split screen on the commercials. And
well, not just that,
and I can't stand watching commercials, so I was actually flipping on my video game and playing for a couple minutes at a time, and then flipping back, after the commercial was over, because I just cannot stand watching commercials.
As you dislike Jim Ross, there was a huge, I can't think of the word, but we missed Ross. They become a part of the show, and the fact that, and I'm not going to lie, nostalgia me as lead announcer on TNT again, but there was a huge hole in the fact that there was no Excalibur and no Jim Ross. Kenny was a nice fill-in for that first match, but in all reality, the show is not the same without the announcers we've known since day one. And that includes Jim Ross and Excalibur.
It also didn't have that we're used to of, a color, a heel or a tweener color guy being out there. Not we really get that from AEW anyway, but it's still weird to have, two clear baby faces out there doing the commentary, and I don't know. It had a weird feel. Like Tony was great as usual, but I didn't think Cody was that good, and I thought Kenny was pretty good, but he was only out there for 2 matches.
I think what we missed big time was Excalibur. He's not a heel, he's not a face, he's not a tweener. He just is whoever he thinks is the best in the ring at the time is who he cheers for, and you really hear that in his announcing. And didn't have that tonight. Excalibur has been the glue of AEW announcing since day one. And it's, as much as we like to say Tony's the color guy or JR's the color guy, the play-by-play guy, in all reality, Excalibur has been the main announcer, and everyone else has kind of followed his lead. And we really noticed it tonight that there was that huge gap in announcing. And I think that huge gap, along with the fact that there was nobody ringside, where last week they were able to have, 5, 6, 7 guys ringside, it didn't happen. And I think that energy from the guys ringside, along with the lacking announcers, really bite out of what could have been in the show. I mean, they had some really good matches.
They did good matches on there. It just like you said, there was no. The only energy was with those competitors. Sabian versus Allen was really good. Cody versus Darby Allin was really good. I loved the AAA Mega Championship match, but I think that all of them suffered from a lack of energy with the announcing and a lack of energy with the crowd. I mean, you've got to have one or the other, in my opinion. And I thought the announcers last week, Taz did a fantastic job last week. So Caliber and JR, Tony playing the Gene Okerlund role was, you and I talked about it last week how perfect that was the whole setup was. And
right,
week,
exactly.
And this week, they only had a skeleton crew even in the building. It seemed like, and and the energy just wasn't there like it was last week. I mean, I think this show suffered a lot from no MJF on it. It suffered a lot from no Excalibur and no Jim Ross.
And a lot of that was due to the coronavirus and all the fallout from it. The fact that they really couldn't be, they had to limit the amount of people that were allowed in the stadium, and who knows what JR's contract or even Excalibur, maybe they weren't physically cleared to come in the arena. Who knows? But we got Tony, and having Tony on TNT, as fun as that was, you're right. It did lack a lot of the energy that we get out of Excalibur. And I'm serious when I say that. I think Excalibur was the missing link this week. I think if we had had Excalibur on this show, that would have been a totally different feeling to it.
Yeah, I think so too. That said, there was some fun stuff. It did end on a segment, so I wasn't. Um, I guess I'm not that down on it ending in a segment this week just because who was in the segment and how great Jericho was talking to Vanguard One.
Yeah, I was going
But
to say that too. This is one of the few times where I did not have an issue with the segment, simply because of just the lack of energy throughout the show and everything. I felt like this was kind of the perfect end to the show that we saw.
yeah.
I'm not a fan of the segments to end a show. I want to see a good match, send me home happy. But a lot of that's because I'm a wrestling fan. A lot of that's because I'm a fan, not a entertainment fan. When I'm watching a wrestling show, I want to see wrestling. I don't want to see entertainment. So, you talked about this before. It's a lot of quit watching WWE and started watching these independent programs was because of the way they ended. So home on a segment, you feel like you're missing something. Where when you go home on a high energy match, a great main event, it feels complete. And this time, with the way that everything worked out and the way that we saw things progress, even though that match, that Triple A Mega Championship match this was still a great way to end the show. And I had no issues with it. Honestly, had no issues.
No, I thought Matt Hardy was great. I thought Jericho was great talking to Vanguard. It was obviously his usual great self talking to Matt Hardy. Um, like I said, I thought the Guevara Omega match was really good, and there was even a couple of spots in there with his near falls when I thought, oh wow, they're really gonna put the belt on Guevara. So I mean, it was a super that last hour of the show I thought was excellent.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought all 2 hours were. I thought that first match between Cody and oh my god, Jimmy Havoc was good. I thought the Sabian Darby Allin match was good.
But I thought it was. But I didn't think. I don't know. I thought that it seemed kind of start stop to me. I'm not sure why. But yeah, I had trouble getting into the opening match, even though it was good. I didn't think it was anything more than good.
No, and I'm just saying that, but when you look at the presentation itself, the fact there is no audience, we were clearly on a skeleton crew. The three matches that we did get were really, really good considering. It was definitely entertaining. The entire 2 hours was entertaining to me. I loved the promos. I loved the matches themselves. And I loved that final segment. The announcing, as much as the nostalgia me loved Tony Schiavone screaming TNT into the mic again, that might have been the part that I struggled with the most.
I thought this was a perfect night to have a couple of squash matches too. We had the squash match involving Hager and whoever the guy was he faced, and then of course we had Moxley come out to attack Hager and try to get a measure of revenge of what had happened to him 2 weeks ago.
I felt bad for QT though.
I didn't.
He's a guy that I'm really starting to like, and to see him squashed that way was disheartening.
Yeah, but would you have felt worse if it was him or Peter Avalon?
Actually, him. I love Peter Avalon. I love Avalon. I think he's very talented. But if the librarian had been out there, I would have been more okay with it than I was with QT Marshall. Because I think it's a weird. I don't want to. I think the reason why is because I still have hope. I'm gonna come over there and fuck you up. Let's just put it that way.
That is not maintaining social distance, sir.
I'm gonna break it just to fuck you up. Let's just put it that way. There's something like I think Peter Avalon at this point in AEW is a lost cause. I don't care what happens with him. He could have a complete change in his character. He'd go back to the heel guy that he was in NWA. I think he's a lost cause. QT Marshall, I think, still has something with fans where he could bounce back and become an actual star in AEW. So I think had this been Peter Avalon that lost to Luke Harper, or not Luke Harper, Brody Lee, I would have been more okay with it than I was with QT Marshall losing.
Well, I guess QT Marshall right now is being used as a tag team talent, so I don't think him losing a singles match to someone they're trying to make a big deal in the Exalted One, Brody Lee, is really in the long run. It just but it was a good choice, especially since he's one of the elite friends and family that could be there on hand, and he's one of the executives with the company as well. I think he was a good choice all around to be the guy that Brody Lee defeated.
All right, yeah, makes sense.
I guess the part that I have a bit of a problem buying into is Cody being so reluctant to have the first match for Lance Archer.
Yeah, but that was a weird segment, though. Because he was reluctant, and then he was okay with it. Then he was reluctant again. Then he was like, okay, let's do it. Then he was reluctant, and then finally he agreed, and now we're going to get that next week.
Well, he said we were going to get Lance Archer's debut match next week. He never said it was going to be against him.
He basically said it was going to be against him. From what I got out of it, because it was just weird the way that he kept going back and forth with his, yeah, let's do it. Okay, no, you don't deserve it. Okay, let's do it, but you should have it against this lower opponent. But okay, I'm okay with it. Let's do it.
I would have been a lot more down with that segment if he had said something like, I was Darby Allin's first singles match here. And then Sean Spears decided to make an example of me, and I was his first singles match here. I'm not going to keep being the bounty that other people are in here trying to collect because they want to make a name for themselves. So you need to work your way from the ground up if you want a shot at me. That's what I would have liked to have him say.
That would have made more sense than what actually had happened. Because, like you said, now, after the segment, I was thinking, okay, we're going to get Lance Archer versus Cody next week. But now, after the way you explained it, I'm like, are we really going to get those two? I have no clue anymore.
Yeah, I don't either. And I do want to see Lance Archer versus Cody, and I wish Cody had just accepted it. But I'm just saying that if he was going to take the stance that he did, I would rather he had brought up the history of what had happened in AEW as a reason to not do, because you could even include MJF in there. I mean, MJF had other singles matches, but he still targeted Cody to be his climb the ladder.
And that was his first real I have a couple singles matches.
Right. We had a couple singles matches. So. Yeah. So I mean, I agree that was kind of a confusing way for Cody to say it, but the way that I heard him say it, it didn't guarantee at least it did against Cody.
Right. Okay, and that makes sense. That makes sense. That's the way you took it.
And that's even the kind of the same thing. I just looked it up on, and they haven't announced it as Cody versus Lance Archer. They've only announced it as Lance making his debut on next week's show. So it's almost like they're saying. So to me, it's almost like they're saying, um, he hadn't. They're not even saying that he was signed by as a wrestler. He was just kind of coming out with Jake Roberts, and now they're going to let him wrestle for the company. I think it's kind of the way that they're trying to make it.
No, because they really threw it out there that they'd made a huge signing before Roberts came out. Then, Lance Archer the next week. Remember, they had promos and everything about how he was going to debut.
I do, but then they backtracked on that, and he didn't debut that week, and now it's 3 weeks later he's making his debut. So I think,
but
no,
it's still the fact.
Actually.
Well, no, because he debuted after week 2. Roberts came out and was his mouthpiece, and then he debuted the next week. Granted, it was in the crowd, but it was still the fact. I mean, they've already announced that he's signed to AEW. And they pretty much blew him up in that very first week before he even debuted. And then Roberts came out and he debuted the following week. So
no,
he's already announced.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, but I think what I'm saying though is I think they kind of rewrote that story, because they announced he was they announced he had signed, off screen, and then on screen they said he was going to debut it was supposed to be the Dynamite after Revolution, and he didn't. Like Roberts came out and said that he had a client. He said the next week Lance Archer was with him, and then last week that he was with him again. And now this week it was Jake without Archer, and now next week is when he's actually making his debut. So that's what I'm saying. It's a month after his original debut date. He's actually debuting in an actual wrestling match.
That's true.
And what I'm saying is I think that the way that they're trying to couch it is that Archer's been showing up, but he's not necessarily under contract with the company, even though they've already announced outside of the ring that he's under contract with the company. And they had already announced he was going to have a debut match, but I think they're trying to walk all of that back.
Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. I get the way you're looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the point is that Cody's saying, yeah, you can wrestle for the company, but you're not going to have your first match against me. You haven't earned that shit yet.
Which, like you said, makes no sense considering Darby had his first match, Sean Spears had his first match, MJF had his first big-time match, and there was somebody else I was thinking of too that had a big-time match against Cody.
Sammy Guevara.
Yeah, Sammy Guevara.
On the very first Dynamite.
So when you look at it that way, for him to say, yeah, you don't deserve to have a big-time match against me, well, really, why'd the other 4 do?
I know, that's why I'm saying he should have brought all that up. He should have brought it up and said, I'm not going to keep being the bounty for all you guys, or something like that.
Or the stepping stone, or whatever.
Right. So that's the part that really kind of gnawed at me is why would he just make the line in the sand against Lance Archer, who's the most experienced of any of those guys?
Right. I mean, Lance has been around since what?
We saw him in 2003 as Dallas with Kid Cash,
Well, and then we saw him shortly after there as Vance Archer, who had simply the coolest entrance music I ever heard. In his little turn on SmackDown before he went to NJPW.
Yeah, I don't remember his music. So.
I loved his music.
But my point is that he's been around 15 years now in major promotions.
Right.
TNA, then WWE, or then ECW, then WWE, then New Japan, and Noah, and now he's in AEW, and yet he hasn't earned the right to face Cody, which is just a bit ridiculous to me.
But yeah, Darby Allin, who was living in a car last August, does.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
That's that's why I think it would have been better if Cody had phrased it a much different way, bringing up the history, just saying he was tired of being you said the stepping stone or the target or whatever. So
The bounty. Said.
so
But Darlin, he lived in a car. So he can have that match against Cody. Lance Archer can't.
And I just want to be clear that I didn't think tonight was a bad episode of Dynamite. I just didn't think it hit it out of the park like the last few had.
It was really, really difficult when you considered there was really only, and it's hard to call Tony Schiavone a staple of the announce team, considering 99% of the time he's just the ring announcer. He, like you said, the Mean Gene Okerlund of the group. The fact that he
of the time, but he's definitely been it's mostly been him, JR, and Excalibur as the ring team. But I mean, sometimes they'll have Taz fill in. They've had other people fill in for him. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely been the man on the announce team that's been there the least amount of time. Even though I would say he's still 75% of the time part of the announce team.
And like I said, a nostalgia feel to him being on that team and being the guy to scream, "We'll be back on TNT," or was a nostalgia thing. But in reality, it did not feel like the AEW announce crew tonight. And I seriously think a lot of that was because of Excalibur. We give a lot of flack to JR. JR's an part of that, but I think Excalibur is the rock to that announce team. And without him being there, it really, really felt like it wasn't an AEW broadcast.
Right. I think, and I was thinking, how would I have felt if Chris Jericho had been in Cody's seat instead of Cody? And I think I would have felt. I still don't think I would have enjoyed it as much, because I think that Jericho would have eventually gotten old in that spot. Even though as good as he was last week, I do think that he can not be overwhelming, but I think he can grow kind of stale if you get too much of him on the mic. But maybe the best solution would have been to have it be a 3-man booth, but it'd be Tony, Cody, and Jericho, and then Cody and Jericho, would kind of be playing off each other and sniping back and forth at each other. I think that would have been a lot of fun.
That would have, yeah, you're right. That would have been a lot more fun. Or somebody who's in possibly a feud with whoever was in the ring. Like if we had CD in there against when Brody Lee's in the ring or something like that, might have made a little more sense.
Rotating guest announcers?
Yeah. I mean, I get why they couldn't because of the whole, coronavirus and all that stuff. They were trying to limit exposure and people in the stadium. But if they had rotated out like that, I think it would have made a lot more sense. Because Cody, the way that Cody was announcing the Brody Lee match was that there was a huge issue between Dark Order and the Elite, which there's really not. So it didn't make as much sense as I think it could have had SCU or Christopher Daniels or maybe even Frankie in the booth during that match. I think would have made a lot more sense.
One thing I thought of during the show, and especially during the main event, that I wanted to bring up before I forgot to say it again is now that Sammy Guevara did that stuff with the pictures in the audience, and when he went to take Brandy off of the chair, it ripped her. It kind of almost like ripped her neck off on the picture. I really want him to start bringing that to the ringside with him all the time, and just kind of being like, I'm sorry, baby, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Just kind of like
that's funny
as a comedy spot where he's always bringing her down. Like maybe he tapes her to a big popsicle stick or something, and he carries her down with him that way. But like where he's like, when he has her kind of taped up, and then maybe every so often she gets ripped again, and he has to keep taping her up until eventually she's just completely destroyed. You know, I think that would have been great, and I think also like once she had gotten ripped, if he had like grabbed the captain and kissed him instead, that would have been hilarious too. But I really
I
like how
kind of wish he had
how
gone
creative
with.
Sammy is with the with with paper, with words, and with pictures. So
Yeah, I do too. I wish that maybe Tony and Cody had known who was taped to those chairs, so they wouldn't have been second guessing themselves on, oh, is that Captain Picard? Is that Captain Kirk? It just,
well, it clearly wasn't
that
Picard
part
or
was a
Cisco.
little
I
bit
mean, come on, he had hair.
right. Right, exactly. So it that part was a little bit disturbing and distracting. And then when they finally got to Kirk and he said, and whoever the other guy is, I was like, okay, come on. Maybe we should have planned this out a little bit better
Hmm.
so that it made some kind of sense to what was you guys were talking about instead of spending half the match guessing on who the other guy was.
Or just say something like, "How about you tweet us your suggestions as who do you think that is in the captain suit?" You know.
Right.
So yeah, I agree. I think I think Sammy is creative in all kinds of ways, and I'm glad to see him using that tonight when making a crowd of pictures when there wasn't one out there for us.
Well, it seems like he keeps coming into his own a lot more and more. The more I see of him, the more I see a young Chris Jericho from 95, 96, 97, where he's just out there doing things to see what sticks. He's singing along to the audience. Last week he was the only one singing. He's taping pictures to the crowd. He's doing whatever he can to entertain. And that reminds me a lot of Jericho in 95 and 96. I mean, the whole the man of, what was he, 10,000 moves or something like that, where every other move is an arm bar. Yeah, it is because he was given that creative freedom to do what he wants, and he's shown. And you're kind of seeing that same element out of Sammy Guevara, where he's given that freedom to be himself, and he's making the best of it, and he's good at it on top of it all.
Yep, agreed. Yeah.
And didn't Bischoff admit that 99% of what Jericho did was because of Jericho?
Yeah, I mean, Jericho would run ideas by him, and he'd be like, "Yeah, go ahead and run with it," because he he focused on other things. He would, even at the time Jericho was starting to rise up, he had a lot of people from Turner and AOL in his ear, like, you can do this, you can't do that, and he had stuff. Jericho in his book basically said that Bischoff didn't pay attention to him because of the stuff going on with the NWO, and he didn't really care about the cruiserweight division. But really, what Bischoff said is, even at that time, his attentions were divided so many other ways, business wise, that he just couldn't, be the driving force creatively or management wise that he should have been. So.
Well, and Bischoff even admitted that Jericho was the reason why Jericho got over, was because he was allowed to have his creative freedom, and 90% of what he did was his idea. The Bill Goldberg stuff, the man of 10,000 or 1,004 holds was his idea. The Hoovy stuff, everything that he did in the mid 90s to get over and ultimately get him into the WWE was his idea. And you're kind of seeing, like I said, some of that stuff out of Sammy, where Sammy is given that creative freedom, and the dude's a funny guy. He has creative ideas that are being used, and as long as these are his ideas, by the way. But what I'm seeing, he is, like with the pictures this week and the singing last week and getting, the crowd to chant along and sing along to Jericho's music and, stuff like that. Guevara is a very creative guy who's going to shine through in the end. He's talented in the ring. He's creative on the mic and just in general. I think, he is going to be one of those guys in the long run that is going to be huge because of it.
Yeah, and I hope he takes advantage, and I think he will, because regardless of what we see on screen, we've seen him on his YouTube channel, and he's actually a very, very humble guy.
Right.
And always willing to learn. And I think that getting the chance to wrestle Cody on the debut episode of Dynamite, who is, in my opinion, the greatest old school classic storyteller we have in pro wrestling these days. And now tonight he gets a chance to wrestle the overall best wrestler on the planet for the last 3 or 4 years in Kenny Omega. Um, I think those are great learning opportunities for this young guy who we see superstar.
Yeah, true.
So,
Can't argue that.
and the other thing I wanted to point out is on a different wrestling company topic is they announced today that Orange County is now going to be in shelter in mode like we are here in Minnesota, Jeff, starting tomorrow
Yeah.
night at midnight. So hopefully WWE gets all their stuff recorded at the Performance Center before tomorrow at midnight, because otherwise they may not be able to do anything else because of that order.
We might get a one-day WrestleMania, is what you're saying?
A 1 day, maybe 3 or 4 hour WrestleMania for the first time in how many years?
Oh my God, a 3-hour WrestleMania. So much excitement just went through me.
Well,
I can't imagine. Oh my God. Oh my God, a 3-hour WrestleMania. That's all I care about. That's all I wish for. Is a 3-hour WrestleMania.
I can hear the ecstasy.
We haven't had that. We haven't had that since 2002.
You sound like Godhead.
Oh my God. That's been my biggest gripe for the last 10 years is the length of views and how and the fact that it's bad enough that if you're a WWE diehard and you have to watch Raw and SmackDown every week, you're spending 5 hours a week on wrestling. But then to dedicate 8 hours to a WrestleMania or a major pay-per-view is just maddening.
It's insane.
And it's become every month, even their one-off pay-per-views where it's the just, start of a feud is a 5.5 hour pay-per-view now. When you factor in the pre-show and all that stuff, it's just maddening. Truly is maddening.
Yeah,
I'm even
reason for be a 1 hour long kickoff show for every pay-per-view, and then a 2 hour long kickoff show for Survivor Series, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, and SummerSlam.
And then to follow it with a 6-hour show.
Right.
I mean, it literally is just anyway. But it's not just them. I mean, even AEW, their last show was what, 4.5 hours?
No, the last show was 3.5 hours minus the pre-show, so it's probably 4 hours.
But regardless, it's still 3.5 hours for a pay-per-view is starting to get the point of just disgusting.
Well, I don't know. I don't
schedule out your feuds and maybe every other show.
To me, 3 or 4 hours is fine, but when it when it starts reaching 5 hours for something more than Wrestle Kingdom, because Wrestle Kingdom is always going to be long, and we're always going to enjoy it, and it's always going to be epic matches. But anything past Wrestle Kingdom that's 5 hours or longer is probably going to end up losing my attention.
I would say the only shows that even should push 4.5 to 5 hours: WrestleMania, Wrestle Kingdom. I can't think of Final Battle and maybe All In. Other than those 4 shows, I don't think any of them should be over 3 hours. Period.
Well, that ship is sailed, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, maybe in the current time, if they keep, if there is still a double or nothing somehow for maybe that'll only be 3 hours because you really can't do much more than that in an empty arena. But but I really think that standard pay-per-views and if you want a 3-hour pay-per-view, Impact and Ring of Honor deliver that almost every time. So,
Right.
but yeah, AEW is probably going to be 4, and GPW is probably going to be 3.5 to 4, and WWE is definitely going to be 3.5 to 4.
Oh, I know that's the norm, but I'm just saying for my perfect viewing time, that would be the way that I would want it. Nothing more than 2.5 to 3 hours on a normal pay-per-view, and then save your 3.5 to 4 hours for your one big card of the year.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean that's just me personally. So
I wasn't trying to go into a tangent on this. I was just pointing out that WrestleMania is going to be in serious jeopardy of doing what they their backup plan if they don't get everything taped before tomorrow at midnight. So anyway, why don't you let everybody know where they can listen to us at?
guys, you're probably listening to us hopefully on YouTube. If not, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Kingdom of Honor, and make sure you like the channel, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you can get all of our shows, which hopefully, and by the way, Shane, maybe I'll talk to you tomorrow. I might have some good news. We might be able to do a show on Monday. So keep looking forward to that. Also, patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. That's where you can go to donate anything to us. And for donating to us, you not only keep us in good graces with our streaming service, but you also get a lot of exclusive content for doing so, and that's patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. And look us up on Twitter. I'm at Richie Co-op. He is at ZanmanLOP. Anything I post, I put hashtag DAD and hashtag KOH on it so you can find us easily.
And we also did you mention our Facebook page?
I did not. I haven't mentioned that in, God, a year. That's been a while. I mean, it's still out there. It's facebook.com/honor, but I guess I don't know why I haven't mentioned it.
Well, I don't know either, Jeff. But now I insist that you do.
All right, doing it next week. Starting next week, I'm doing it.
Okay. And make sure you stay tuned to all the other LOP radio shows. Tomorrow is all the ones that are left standing. Tomorrow is MCLOP Radio Adventure. On Friday, like I said last night, I'm not sure if there's actually going to be any more NWA Legacy series for a while because of the fact that they're not airing Legacies NWA Powers right now. Next week on Kingdom of Honor, we're planning on covering the free show that Will Ospreay put on in the Empty Arena match through, in partnership, I believe, with Wrestle Talk. Hopefully it's still available for us to watch. And that's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
goodbye.
G1 Climax 27. Goodbye and good night.